Hello everyone, welcome to the PyCon conference. The topic of this session is from Dabbler to developer. I would like to introduce you to our speaker for the session, Jessica Shortz. Jessica is from the USA and now works as a software engineer in Stockholm at Spotify. Hello Jessica.
Hi.
Are you ready for your presentation?
Yeah.
Great, then I give you the word.
Thanks. So, hi everyone. I hope you're enjoying PyCon so far. I hope you've had a chance to watch some great talks. I'm going to be talking about my career journey and how Python is intersected with it. I work as a software engineer at Spotify, but I came from a very non-traditional programming background, and Python is actually where I started my programming journey. So it's near and dear to my heart. But before I get started on kind of talking about my programming journey, I just wanted to tell you a little bit more about myself. I'm going to do that in some pictures. I am not a graphic designer, so forgive the kind of ugly collage here. But starting from the very top left, I'm from the US. I'm actually from Texas, and I found this slip of plastic outside an IKEA in Stockholm like a year or two ago, and was really excited, and of course took a picture. Going clockwise, I am an avid video game player, and this screenshot is from Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I chose it because it also highlights something else about me, which is I minored in classics when I was in college. So I have a deep love for ancient Greece and Rome. And I was so excited when I played Odyssey and the temples were all painted and the statues are painted. And I took so many screenshots. I'm pretty sure all my friends on social media were tired of seeing Assassin's Creed Odyssey screenshots. And continuing clockwise, this is Vault Boy from the Fallout video game series, which is my absolute favorite series. I found a life-size one here in Stockholm in a store and abandoned all sense of dignity and took a picture with it. I don't just play video games though, so continuing clockwise, I also play a lot of board and card games, including bridge. I really love bridge. And this says, if looks could kill, a lot of people would die with bridge cards in their hands. And this is a very true statement. I found it at a cabin I was staying at randomly. And in the bottom middle, this is a picture of a street called Nakamisedori in Tokyo, and that is my favorite place on the planet. So just something else about me. And then in case at this point you weren't sure how nerdy I am, the last picture there is from the British Library in London. I went there 2 years ago, and I went there for a specific reason. I mean, the British Library would always be exciting to me, but specifically they had an exhibit showing the actual Doomsday Book. I was really disappointed there because you couldn't take any pictures inside. So this was literally like the closest physically almost that I could take a picture to the actual book. So it was kind of like I think most people would approach seeing a celebrity is kind of how I felt seeing this, book that's almost 1,000 years old. So that's a little about me. What I want to do next is talk about why I think Python is just such an amazing place to start when you're new to programming, because it's something I really appreciate looking back on my journey. So the first thing I really love about Python for folks who are new to programming is that the syntax is really natural. It's not quite like writing a paragraph of English, but it's not that far off. And once you've dabbled in other languages, the syntax of Python is something I have come back to appreciate. It's very easy to read. It's very easy to kind of understand what's happening. It doesn't have a lot of what I call magic language. So that's something I think is not to be understated about why Python is a great place to start. It's not that intimidating in terms of the syntax of the language. Something I absolutely love about Python, and I'm going to spend a few minutes just kind of showcasing this, is Python has amazing documentation. So first of all, there's docs.python.org, and this is just the landing page. This happens to be Python 3.9, but you can see over on the left, there are all kinds of different versions. If you're a veteran with Python, this section may not be new to you, but maybe there's actually a few things here in the documentation you haven't explored yet. So this page, this landing page, you can see just has a ton of information, table of contents, FAQs, tutorial for if you're coming from C and C++, all kinds of things. And that's true for all these different versions over on the left. This landing page is amazing. There's actually a search feature here at docs.python.org, which is very much worth using. It's worth using when you know what you're doing and you just want more details. And when you're starting out, it's absolutely amazing because as you learn about something, you can search for it and it's going to bring up the system reference documents, the language reference, which is really useful to see how you're supposed to use it. But it's also going to bring up stuff, as you can see here, like the design and history FAQ, the functional programming how-to, which you might not have even known existed before. So this search functionality is absolutely amazing. Here I've searched for Lambda, as in Lambda expressions. Up at the top, you see you can choose a language and you can choose a Python version and then cater your search to that. So the search functionality here is really great. Python also has an official developer's guide. So when you're just starting out, this is probably not a place you want to go, but you don't really have to get that far in your Python journey to use this. So what this is meant to do is to teach you kind of how to be a good steward of the Python environment, how to contribute to the Python code base, how to fix issues in Python. As you can see there, I think number 9 on the left, fixing easy issues and beyond. So this guide is not just written for someone who is an expert in Python, it's written for all of us to be able to contribute to Python. As they say at the top, both new and experienced contributors. So once you've gotten a little more comfortable in your programming journey, this developer's guide is an amazing place to come and learn how to be a part of the Python community and to be a developer in the Python world. And I can't understate this enough. One of the beauties of Python is also all the packages it has. So if you go to pypy.org, you can find the Python package index. Here I've searched for NLP, or natural language processing, and you can see it's returned over 1,700 results. Something I've learned in my programming journey is that if someone else has already invented the wheel, I really don't want to reinvent it. And one of the beauties of Python is there are so many packages out there. When you're confronted with a problem, there's a chance that someone else has already solved that problem. So you can come here, do some searches in pypy.org, find packages that may already address your needs, or that at least will give you inspiration to come up with a solution for yourself. So really amazing resource here as well. So I talked about the syntax and the documentation. Something else I really love about Python is it's just really powerful under the hood. In other words, can't really see it, but it is really powerful. A lot of programming languages are very powerful, but it takes a lot to get into them. As I said, the syntax in Python is really natural. So just starting out, you can do a lot with it. And I kind of have 2 examples for why this is, or sort of 2 personal stories for how this has affected me. So I said I started with Python, and that's true. I actually started with a book called Automate the Boring Stuff. And the entire concept of Automate the Boring Stuff, a book by a guy named Al Swigart, is that you can use Python, even if you really don't know how to program, that you can use it to kind of solve problems and remove tedium and boring tasks from your life, give them over to Python to solve programmatically. And you can do that. There's a lot of languages where I think that book could not be written. It would just be, or it could be written, but it would have to be written for someone who already knew how to program in the language. But with Python, you can have a book that is catered to someone who doesn't already know how to use Python, and they can learn to use it and actually solve their real life problems at the same time. That's really amazing. My second story is I've taken a couple classes, and I'll talk about them a little bit later. But in one of those, I had an assignment to use the Pokemon API and to do an HTTP GET request to find some kind of detail about a Pokemon. I don't really remember. And the class happened to be in Java. And I may have done it wrong, but I did the best I could. And it was really a painful process. It required writing multiple Java classes. It took me probably a couple hours when I was learning how to do it. And I thought to myself, seemed like such a small thing, and yet it was such a big thing to do, relatively speaking. And so I went home that night and I thought, what would this look like in Python? And I researched it and I figured out how to do it. And it ended up being, I think, 5 lines of code, give or take. It was a very simple solution. It was sleek. It was fast. It was easy. And all of that took me, with the researching, I think 15 to 20 minutes. So that's just kind of another example of how you can really do powerful stuff with Python really early on in your programming journey. Another wonderful thing about Python is it has a lot of intersection with machine learning and data science. And if you're starting out, you're not really sure what you're interested in, I think this is a good thing because machine learning and data science are both really popular, really hot areas right now. It's where you're going to find a lot of people doing really cool stuff. It may be where you end up finding a job opportunity if that's your end goal with learning Python. So that's something I think is really good for when you're just starting out. A really wonderful thing about Python is that it does have a lot of intersection with those fields. But my absolute favorite part of Python is what we're doing right now. It's the Python community. It's the conferences and the workshops and the groups, and it's how welcoming the community is. And something I discovered is that Python has an official diversity statement. And you can find it at the link there. I'm just going to read it out because I think it's really important. It says, "The Python Software Foundation and the global Python community welcome and encourage participation by everyone. Our community is based on mutual respect, tolerance, and encouragement, and we are working to help each other live up to these principles. We want our community to be more diverse. Whoever you are and whatever your background, we welcome you." And that emphasis at the end is mine. I'm going to talk pretty soon about statistically how I'm not a typical programmer, but I can tell you that as someone who was starting a lot later than other folks, that diversity statement like this is really powerful to me. It tells me that I'm wanted in the community. And I've attended a lot of in-person Python meetings. I've volunteered with PyLadies here in Stockholm, and I have never seen a more welcoming community. So I believe that Python lives up to this. It tends to be a really welcoming community, a place where you can find people who are really excited to help you, they're really excited to help you grow, and they're really welcoming. So where do you find other people once you've started learning Python and you want to find other people to learn Python with or interact with? The python.org has a lot of information on this too. So it has a list of local user groups. There's also an entire section of the website devoted to community. There's also pyladies.com. PyLadies is about empowering women and non-binary folks who are interested in Python. I mentioned PyLadies specifically because I noticed that some of the local PyLadies chapters are not reflected in those local user groups. Meetup.com, when we can all be back in person, is another great place to go and find folks. And then python.org also maintains a list of conferences and workshops, which you can find at that link. Again, it's not exhaustive, so kind of keep your eye out on different, other sites, but there's just so much community and it's pretty easy to find people. Just, use all the resources you have. So I want to talk about my actual background because I keep saying I'm not a typical programmer in terms of my background. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Music. You already know I have a minor in classics. I have a Juris Doctorate, which means I went to law school. And in fact, I'm a licensed attorney in the US. I worked as a law clerk and a prosecutor, an assistant district attorney specifically. I've worked as a private tutor. And this January, I started working as a software engineer at Spotify here in Stockholm. So how unusual does this make me? There's actual data on this. This is the Stack Overflow Developer Survey for 2020. It was sent out in February of this year, I think, so it doesn't reflect the realities of working from home, but they got a pretty good response. So this question asks, for those who have an undergraduate degree, what major is that degree in? What field is that in? And they had, this is only professional developers, not all respondents, but of the professional developers, there were almost 45,000 responses. I added up all the ones that seemed very tech related to me. So the obvious computer science, computer engineering, or a different engineering discipline, or IT, or math, or some kind of web development degree. And when you add all those up, it's 86.7%. It's a really overwhelming percentage come from those backgrounds. My background is there in the green box. Fine arts or performing arts, 1.4%. And of course, we're all lumped together there. My undergraduate degree is in music, but this also counts, folks who majored in art history. So very, very unusual here in terms of the statistics for me. And also the obvious that my gender makes me unusual in our community. So this one is all respondents from the same survey. Programmers who are men, 91.5%. I'm a woman, so it was 8%. So in our field, I'm unusual just in terms of my gender as well. But I'm also unusual in when I came to programming and how I got here. And this is the message I want you to take away, is that it's never too late to start over. If you're unhappy where you are, if you feel stuck, you can always start over. So I told you about my background before, and now I'm going to tell you some dates. I got my Bachelor's of Art in Music in 2002. I graduated from law school in 2005. In 2018, my partner and I moved to Stockholm, and there were actually some opportunities here that were really exciting. So in 2019, I started a program called Foo Coding, which empowers folks who are new to Sweden to learn how to program. And it was very front-end based. It was based in JavaScript. And I knew I didn't really want to be on the front end. So I didn't actually finish that program, but I switched to another program called Software Development Academy. That's run by a company called Navari Potential in conjunction with KTH University here in Stockholm. And Software Development Academy was really amazing. It was a little over 3 months. We would go 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, pretty much all day. You go and you learn, and you work on projects and all kinds of things. And that was in Java. So JavaScript, Java, and I started in Python. In January, I started as a software engineer at Spotify. And I still get to use Python now, which is really exciting to me. I get to use Python in my day-to-day work, which I really love. So how unusual does this make me as to when I came to programming? The Stack Overflow Developer Survey has data on this too. Programmers who wrote their first line of code before turning 30 is 98.3% of the respondents, which was almost 58,000. Me, I'm down there at the bottom in the 1.7%, and that number encompasses everyone, whether they were 30 or 60 or 90 or 100. If you were 30 years or older, that's where you got on the survey. So 1.7%. I was 36, give or take, when I wrote my first line of code. The most common response here is that at 14 to 15 years old, programmers write their first line of code. So this does make me quite unusual. But is it a bad thing? I can tell you it's not. I struggle with imposter syndrome because I did start this so late in my life, but I can also see very clearly how my past experience makes me a better programmer. It makes me a better engineer. I have more appreciation for documentation than I would otherwise. I have a better understanding of all kinds of things. I think I have a deeper passion for understanding my users than I would otherwise. So at least for me, I really appreciate the lessons I learned in getting here and the previous experiences I had. And I believe they make me a better programmer. If programming were just writing code, then sure, we should all start when we're 10 or younger than 10. So we have the most experience possible just writing that first line of code and then writing the next line of code. But that's not all that being software engineer is about. And I promise you, whatever your background, whether you are an accountant, a teacher, or a baker, whatever your experience, you will find it deepens your ability to be a software engineer. So if you're asking yourself, is this right for me? Could I do this? Is this silly? It is not silly. It is never too late to start over. And I want to leave you again with that statement from the diversity statement. Whoever you are and whatever your background, we welcome you. You are wanted in the Python community. So that was my talk. I hope you maybe learned some things. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn. I should be the only Jessica Shortz. It's an unusual last name. And absolutely feel free to send me a message or a connection request. And I don't know if there are any questions.
Thank you, Jessica, for your inspirational presentation. It was amazing. And thanks to our listeners for joining. Then we are finished, and you can connect to the next presentation.
Cool. Have a great time, everyone.